Most people don't fail overnight. They fail slowly, one bad habit at a time, a missed opportunity here, a wasted hour there, and before they know it, years have passed and they're still stuck. But let me tell you, the wealthy, they don't fall into this trap. They build habits that push them forward, while the broke drift through life wondering why nothing ever changes. If you're not intentional, mediocrity will sneak up on you, and by the time you notice, it'll be too late. I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself 5 years from now. Same struggles, same frustrations, same paycheck. Now, imagine that someone else, someone who made different choices, has built wealth, success, and freedom in those same 5 years. The difference? It wasn't luck. It was habits. Here's the truth. If you don't start changing how you think and act today, you'll wake up one day wondering where all your time and potential went, and that's a regret you don't want to carry. Hard work alone does not make you rich. I know people who have worked hard all their lives and still struggle. Why? Because wealth isn't about working more hours, it's about working the right way. The wealthy don't just work hard, they work smart. They have habits that multiply their efforts, while the broke trade time for money until they run out of both. If you don't change your approach, you'll never change your results. Let me tell you something. Your life is a direct reflection of your habits. And one of the most dangerous habits you can ever develop is the habit of making excuses. It's a silent thief. It robs you of opportunity, progress, and wealth. Excuses sound reasonable. They feel comfortable. But in the end, they leave you empty-handed. You see, the man who blames the government, the economy, or his circumstances has already given up control. And when you give up control, you give up your ability to change. I once met a man who told me, "Jim, I'd be rich, but I wasn't born into a wealthy family." I said, "That's interesting because I know plenty of wealthy people who were born poor." Another man said, "I'd be successful, but my boss doesn't appreciate me." I said, "Then why don't you go out and build something for yourself?" You see, there's always a reason not to succeed if you look for one. And the more excuses you collect, the more powerless you become. Successful people don't have fewer problems than you. They don't have fewer obstacles. In fact, many of them started with far less. But they developed a different habit, the habit of responsibility. Instead of looking for reasons why they can't, they look for ways they can. Instead of blaming circumstances, they take charge of their circumstances. That's the habit of the wealthy. Here's a simple truth. If something is your fault, then it's also within your power to fix it. That's good news. That means if you're broke today, you don't have to stay broke. If you're behind, you can catch up. If you're failing, you can change course. But none of that happens unless you first accept responsibility. A man once asked me, "Jim, what's the secret to wealth?" I told him, wealth is a result of habits. And the first habit you must develop is the habit of responsibility. Nobody is going to come rescue you. There's no magic formula. No government program, no lucky break is going to change your life for you. Only you can do that. And it starts with saying, I am responsible for where I am, and I am responsible for where I go from here. I knew a young man who wanted to be wealthy, but every time I saw him, he had a new excuse. One day it was bad luck, the next it was the economy. Finally, I told him, you'll never get rich until you stop making excuses. A few years later, he came back to me. This time he was successful. He said, Jim, the day I stopped making excuses was the day I started making money. That's how it works. So here's the question. Are you going to let excuses define your life, or are you going to take responsibility and build your own wealth? The choice is yours. But remember this, excuses will keep you broke, while responsibility will make you rich. Most people earn money and spend it all. Some even spend more than they earn. That's why they stay broke. But wealthy people, they follow a different habit. They understand that money is a tool, and if you use it wisely, it multiplies. The question is, do you control your money, or does your money control you? Because let me tell you, if you don't tell your money where to go, it will disappear and you'll wonder where it went. I once knew a man who made a great income, yet every month he was struggling to pay his bills. I asked him, where does all your money go? He said, well, I've got expenses and I like to enjoy life. And I told him, if you don't develop the habit of keeping some of your money, you'll work hard your whole life and have nothing to show for it. You see, it's not just about how much you earn, it's about how much you keep. Wealthy people have a simple rule: don't spend everything you make. The habit of saving and investing is what separates the rich from the broke. Some say, but Jim, I don't have enough left at the end of the month to save. And that's the problem. You're saving what's left instead of saving first. The wealthy pay themselves first. That means the first thing you do when you earn money is set some aside. Before you pay the rent, before you buy anything, before you do anything else. Let's say you earn $1,000. If you save just 10%, that's $100. Do that every month for a year and you've got $1,200. Do that for 10 years and that's $12,000. And that's without investing it. Now imagine if you put that money to work in investments. Over time it grows and soon your money is making money for you. That's how wealth is built, not overnight, but over time with discipline. A young man once told me, Jim, I don't make enough to save. I told him, then you'll never make enough. Because saving isn't about how much you make. It's about developing the habit. If you can't save when you make $1,000, you won't save when you make $10,000. The habit has to start now. You see, the broke mindset says, I'll save when I make more. The wealthy mindset says, I save no matter what. It's not about the amount. It's about the principle. The habit of spending everything keeps you trapped. The habit of saving and investing sets you free. So let me ask you, where is your money going? Are you controlling it or is it controlling you? Because if you don't build the habit of saving and investing, you'll work for money your whole life. But if you learn to keep some and make it work for you, one day money will work for you instead. And that's when real wealth begins. Most people want success, but they want it now. They want wealth, but they don't want to wait. They want the reward without the work, the harvest without the planting. And that's why most people stay broke, because wealth isn't built in a day. It's built daily with habits that compound over time. The question is, are you chasing quick pleasure or are you building something that lasts? I once knew a man who always had the latest gadgets, the best clothes, the newest car. Every time he made money, he spent it to feel good in the moment. But here's the problem. Every time he got paid, his bank account emptied just as fast. He was living for today, but he wasn't preparing for tomorrow. And that's a dangerous way to live. You see, the habit of seeking instant gratification is one of the greatest traps that keeps people poor. It's the habit of spending now instead of saving, watching TV instead of learning, indulging in comfort instead of pushing through discomfort. It's the small choices that feel good in the moment, but cost you in the long run. The wealthy understand something different. They think ahead. They sacrifice today so they can have more tomorrow. A farmer doesn't plant seeds and expect to harvest the next morning. No, he knows it takes time. He plants, he waters, he nurtures, and after months of discipline, the harvest comes. But here's what's interesting. Most people don't think like farmers. They think like gamblers. They want to put in a little effort and get a big return right away. And when they don't see results, they quit. That's why they never build anything that lasts. A young man once told me, I want to be rich. I asked him, what's your plan? He said, I just need a lucky break. That's the mindset that keeps people struggling. The wealthy don't wait for luck. They create it. They think long term. They build skills. They invest in themselves. They delay pleasure today for greater rewards tomorrow. Take Warren Buffett, for example. He started investing when he was a teenager. He didn't get rich overnight. He built wealth over decades. He understood that money grows when you give it time. The same is true with success. You don't get fit in one workout. You don't become a millionaire in one investment. You don't master a skill in one day. It's about consistency over time. So let me ask you, are you making decisions for short-term pleasure or long-term success? Are you spending your time on distractions or building something meaningful? Because every decision you make is either moving you closer to wealth or keeping you broke. The choice is yours. Most people want a better life, but they don't want to become better. They want more money, but they don't want to develop the skills to earn it. They want success, but they ignore the very thing that creates it: personal growth. And that's why they stay stuck, because wealth doesn't come from what you get. It comes from who you become. I once knew a man who complained about his job every day. He said he wasn't paid enough. He said his boss didn't appreciate him. He said life was unfair. And I asked him, when was the last time you read a book to improve your skills? He said, I don't have time for that. That was his problem. He was waiting for his circumstances to change, but he wasn't changing himself. And that's a losing strategy. The wealthy have a different mindset. They understand that money flows to those who provide value. And the only way to provide more value is to keep learning. They develop skills, they seek knowledge, they read books, attend seminars, and invest in themselves because they know the greatest asset they have is their mind. There's an old saying, if you take all the money in the world and distribute it evenly, it will soon end up in the same hands. Why? Because success isn't about luck. It's about mindset and habits. A person with a poor mindset can win $1 million and lose it all within a year. But a person with a wealthy mindset can lose everything and rebuild it again. That's why the real key to wealth is not money, it's growth. I once met a businessman who started with nothing, no inheritance, no fancy degree, no special advantages. But he made a decision he would learn his way to success. He read books on business, he studied leadership, he found mentors, he spent his evenings learning instead of watching TV, and over time, his knowledge turned into income. His income turned into wealth. Because when you develop yourself, everything in your life improves. You see, the habit of lifelong learning is what separates the wealthy from the broke. Most people stop learning after school. They think education ends when they graduate. But the wealthy know something different. Education is a lifelong process. They never stop improving. They never stop growing. And because of that, their income, their success, and their opportunities never stop growing either. So let me ask you, what are you doing every day to become more valuable? Are you reading? Are you learning? Are you developing yourself? Because the truth is, you don't get paid for your time. You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. And if you want more, you have to become more. The choice is yours. Time is the one resource you can never get back. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose opportunities and find new ones. But time, once it's gone forever. And yet most people waste it like they have an endless supply. They scroll through distractions. They procrastinate on important things. They fill their days with meaningless activities, wondering why success never comes their way. The wealthy think differently. They know that time is more valuable than money because time creates money, and that's why they treat it with respect. They don't waste hours on things that don't move them forward. They don't spend their days watching television, gossiping, or making excuses. They use every moment wisely, learning, growing, building, and creating, because they know that how you spend your time determines how you spend your life. I once met a man who told me he wanted to be rich. He had big dreams, but when I asked him about his daily routine, he told me he spent hours watching sports, playing video games, and scrolling on his phone. I told him, success is not about wanting more, it's about doing more. If you're not using your time wisely, don't be surprised when nothing changes. The truth is, everyone gets the same 24 hours a day. The difference between the wealthy and the broke is how they use those hours. The unsuccessful waste time on entertainment. The successful invest time in their future. They read books instead of binge-watching shows. They work on their goals instead of complaining about their problems. They wake up with purpose instead of sleeping their potential away. There's an old saying, the rich invest in time, the poor invest in money. And it's true. The wealthy understand that every hour they waste is money lost. That's why they delegate. They automate. They focus on high-value activities that bring the biggest returns. They don't do everything. They do what matters most. Let me give you a practical example. Two people start with the same goal, to build a successful business. One spends his evenings scrolling social media, watching TV, and making excuses. The other uses his evenings to study business, take action, and improve his skills. Fast forward 5 years. One is stuck in the same place and the other is financially free. Same goal, same amount of time, completely different results. So the question is, how are you using your time? Are you investing it in things that move you forward, or are you letting it slip away? Because if you don't take control of your time, someone else will. And if you're serious about success, you must develop the habit of maximizing every moment. Every hour is a choice. Every day is a chance. And the decisions you make today will shape the life you live tomorrow. The clock is ticking. What are you going to do with it? Most people live their entire lives avoiding risk. They fear failure. They fear loss. They fear stepping outside their comfort zone. And because of that fear, they stay exactly where they are, year after year, stuck in the same financial struggles, the same routines, the same limitations. But the wealthy, they think differently. They understand that success requires risk, not reckless, blind gambling, but calculated risk, the kind that leads to growth, wealth, and opportunity. I remember talking to a man who told me he wanted to start a business. He had a great idea, the skills, and even the resources to get started. But he never did. What if I fail, he asked. What if I lose money? What if it doesn't work? And I told him, what if you don't try? What if you stay exactly where you are? What if 5 years from now, you're still making excuses while someone else is living the dream you were too afraid to pursue? You see, failure isn't the real risk. The real risk is doing nothing. The real risk is letting fear steal your future. The wealthy understand that every great opportunity comes with uncertainty, but instead of running from it, they prepare for it. They gather knowledge, they study the patterns, they weigh the odds, and then they take action. Take the story of a young entrepreneur who wanted to invest in real estate. He studied the market. He learned from experienced investors. He saved enough to get started. And when the time came, he made his first purchase. Was there a risk? Of course. But he minimized it by doing his homework. And because he was willing to take that first step, he built a portfolio that made him a millionaire. Now contrast that with the person who spends years waiting for the perfect time. They say, I'll start when the economy is better. I'll invest when I have more money. I'll take action when the risk is lower. And what happens? They never start. Because there will always be risk. The question is, are you willing to take the right kind of risk? The wealthy know that nothing great comes from playing it safe. Look at any successful person. At some point, they took a leap of faith. They started the business, made the investment, pursued the opportunity. And yes, sometimes they failed, but each failure became a lesson, and each lesson made them stronger. The difference between the rich and the broke isn't luck. It's the willingness to act despite uncertainty. So here's the truth. If you want wealth, if you want freedom, you must embrace risk. Not foolish, reckless risk, but calculated risk. Learn, prepare, and then move forward. Because the biggest risk of all isn't failing, it's wasting your potential by never trying. Some people spend their entire lives complaining. They complain about the economy, they complain about their job, they complain about taxes, the government, their boss, their past, their circumstances. And the more they complain, the worse their life gets. Because here's the truth. What you focus on expands. Complain long enough, and you'll find more reasons to be miserable. But the wealthy, they don't waste time complaining. Instead, they cultivate the habit of gratitude and positive thinking. I once met a man who had every excuse in the book. He told me, I can't get ahead because I wasn't born rich. I can't succeed because I don't have the right connections. I can't do what I want because life is unfair. And I said, my friend, you're right. Because as long as you believe those excuses, they'll be true for you. You see, a complaining mindset doesn't just steal your joy, it steals your future. Now think about someone who built real wealth. They had setbacks too. They faced struggles, disappointments, and failures. But instead of complaining about the obstacles, they looked for solutions. They found opportunities in problems. They learned from failure instead of resenting it. And most importantly, they focused on what they had instead of what they lacked. Gratitude is a powerful force. It shifts your mindset from lack to abundance. When you're grateful for what you have, you start to see more possibilities. Instead of saying, I don't have enough money, you start asking, how can I create more? Instead of saying, life isn't fair, you say, I have the power to change my circumstances. And that shift makes all the difference. I remember meeting a successful businessman who told me his secret. Every morning, before checking emails, before answering calls, before doing anything, he wrote down 3 things he was grateful for. He said it changed his life. Why? Because it trained his mind to focus on the good instead of the bad. And when you train your mind to see the good, you start attracting more good into your life. Contrast that with the person who wakes up and immediately starts complaining. They complain about waking up early, they complain about the traffic, they complain about their job, and by the time their day starts, they've already set themselves up for failure. Their energy is drained, their motivation is low, and their mind is focused on everything wrong instead of everything possible. The wealthy understand that a positive mind creates a positive life, not by ignoring problems, but by focusing on solutions. They practice gratitude daily. They choose to see opportunities instead of obstacles, and because of that mindset, they attract more success, more wealth, and more happiness. So here's the challenge. Stop complaining. Start appreciating. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you can create. Because the more grateful you are, the more doors will open. And the more positive you become, the more success will follow. Some people spend their entire lives depending on just one source of income. They wake up, go to work, collect a paycheck, and repeat the cycle for 40 years, hoping it will be enough. But what happens when that paycheck stops? What happens if the company downsizes, the industry shifts, or the economy takes a downturn? You see, relying on one income is one of the most dangerous financial habits a person can have. The wealthy understand this. That's why they build multiple streams of income. I once spoke with a man who had worked the same job for 25 years. One day he walked in and was told his position was no longer needed. Just like that. His only source of income was gone. And do you know what he said? I never saw it coming. But here's the truth. He should have seen it coming. Because no job is guaranteed. No single source of income is permanent. The economy shifts. Companies change and industries evolve. The only thing you can truly control is how well you prepare. Wealthy people think differently. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. They understand that a single stream of income is a trap. That's why they diversify. They don't just work for money, they make money work for them. One of the best ways to create financial security is by building multiple sources of income. This doesn't mean quitting your job overnight. It means using your spare time wisely. It means learning a skill that can generate income. It means investing wisely, creating assets, and finding ways to make money even when you're not working. I remember meeting a man who worked a regular 9-to-5 job, but he didn't stop there. He took a portion of his paycheck and invested it in real estate. Over time, he bought rental properties. Soon, his rental income exceeded his salary. Then he started a small side business. And before long, he had built a financial foundation that no employer could take away from him. That's the mindset of the wealthy. They don't wait for opportunities, they create them. Contrast this with the person who lives paycheck to paycheck. They earn money, spend it all, and wait for the next paycheck to come. They never build assets, they never invest, they never develop new income streams, and then when financial trouble hits, they're left scrambling, wondering what went wrong. So, what's the lesson? Don't rely on just one income. Start building your financial future now. Find ways to earn outside of your job, invest wisely, create assets, and most importantly, take control of your financial destiny, because wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how many ways you make it. And the more streams of income you create, the more financially secure you'll be. Some people drift through life with no direction, no plan, and no clear vision of where they're going. They wake up, go to work, pay their bills, and hope that somehow, someday, they'll end up wealthy. But hope is not a strategy. Wishing for success without a plan is like setting sail without a map. You'll end up lost, drifting wherever the wind takes you. Wealthy people don't live by chance. They set clear financial goals. They know exactly where they're headed, how much they want to earn, and what steps they need to take to get there. They don't just work hard, they work strategically. I once met a man who told me, I want to be rich. I asked him, how much do you want to make? He shrugged, I don't know, just a lot. I said, then you'll never get there, because if you don't know where you're going, how will you ever arrive? The wealthy set specific goals. They don't say, I want to make more money. They say, I want to earn $100,000 in the next 2 years by doing X, Y, and Z. They break it down into actionable steps, track their progress, and adjust their strategies as needed. Think about it. If you wanted to build a house, would you just start nailing boards together and hope it turns into something great? Of course not. You'd have a blueprint, a plan, a clear vision of what you want before you even pick up a hammer. Your financial future is no different. Without a plan, you'll waste time, make costly mistakes, and end up nowhere. The power of goal setting is extraordinary. Studies have shown that people who write down their goals are far more likely to achieve them than those who don't. Why? Because writing down your goals gives you clarity. It forces you to be specific. It turns vague dreams into concrete targets. And when you have a clear target, you can create a strategy to hit it. I once knew a young man who decided he wanted to be financially free by 40. So he mapped out a plan. He calculated exactly how much he needed to save and invest every year. He created a side business to generate extra income. He lived below his means, made smart financial decisions, and followed his plan religiously. And you know what? By the time he turned 38, he had built enough wealth to retire if he wanted to. That's the power of setting clear goals and sticking to them. On the other hand, most people never set financial goals at all. They live paycheck to paycheck, reacting to life instead of planning for it. And when they reach retirement age, they look back and wonder where all the time went. So here's the lesson. Don't live by accident. Live by design. Set clear financial goals. Write them down. Break them into actionable steps. Track your progress. Adjust when needed. Because if you don't create a plan for your wealth, I guarantee someone else will create a plan for your poverty.